No, you can't yet. So we'll wait till Tyler gets back. Nope, so I'm going to mark him absent. So we have x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's the quadratic formula. And what we've defined is that b squared minus 4ac is referred to as the discriminant. The discriminant because it tells us the nature of the solutions. Namely, if underneath the square root sign, if you get a positive number like 16, what times what is 16? Or negative 4 times negative 4, right? So there are two possibilities. So it gives you two solutions that are real. Now, when you look at the graph, when we solve this, x equals this, and we find the result using the quadratic formula, what does that give us, graphically speaking? What does it give us, graphically speaking? But what do we call those things? X-intercepts. So Jesse and Luke, if you guys could stop talking, that would be very much appreciated. So we have x-intercept and x-intercept. So two real solutions, that's what happens. If you get a positive underneath the square root sign, that's what we get. Now, if you get a 0 underneath the square root sign, what's the square root of 0? And so there's only one result. So you have one solution that is real. Okay? And if you draw the graph, it would just touch tangent at one spot and bounce up. So that is your one solution that you have. And if the result under the square root sign is negative, let's say negative 9, what's the square root of negative 9 that you learned on Friday? 3i. 3i. 3i is the square root of negative 9, okay? And so you realize you have 0 real solutions, 2 that are imaginary. So we have 2 imaginary solutions, 0 that are real. And the way that looks, graphically speaking, is like that. There are no x-intercepts. There's no spot where it crosses on the real axis at all. So we want to look at the discriminant, tell what the nature of our solutions are, and then give the solutions. And that's our objective for today. So this is a review from Friday. I told you to try 4 problems on your own. Raise your hand if you tried 4 and got 4 done. How'd it go? Okay. Hopefully today we'll have square root of negative 100 is 10i. Yep. Nope. Okay. So let's do 3 problems together. Let's start with problem number 4. So I told you to do a few. We'll see where you get, but we're going to do 4 together. And I'm going to use the quadratic formula. And I'm going to do it on a separate sheet of paper to give myself a little bit more room. We set the function equal to 0, and then we use the quadratic formula. So I identify A. What is A? 1. What is B? What is C? I plug it in. I'm doing problem number 4. X equals negative B, or negative 4, plus or minus the square root of, what's B squared? 16, very good. Minus 4 times A is 1 and C is 3. Divided by twice my A value. So the first goal is to make sure you plug everything correctly into the quadratic formula. Now it's time to evaluate. Do you do 16 minus 4 first, or 4 times 1 times 3? 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. And 16 minus 12 is 4. So you get x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. Is everybody okay with that? So now I look at the discriminant. What is the value of the discriminant? Positive 4. What does that mean? 2 real solutions. So this crosses the x-axis twice. So I'm just going to write 2 real solutions. What's the square root of 4? 2. So now I'm going to actually identify what the solutions are. I have negative 4 plus or minus 2 divided by 2. And now I carry that out. What's negative 4 plus 2? Negative 2 divided by negative 2, or divided by positive 2 is? So negative 1 is one solution. And the other solution would be, what's negative 4 minus 2? Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. So there's my two solutions, negative 1 and negative 3. So if you could actually plot those points on the x-axis, and that's where the graph would go through. So that's what we just found. Any questions about example number 4, problem number 4? Going once? Twice? Thrice. Okay, flip it over. And let's do problem number 10 says 6x squared plus 10x plus 7 is equal to 0. So again, I set up the quadratic formula. What is A? B and C. So now I got to plug the numbers in correctly. Negative B, so negative 10 plus or minus the square root of, what's B squared? Hundo. Minus 4 times A is 6 and C is 7. Divided by twice my A value. 12. Four times 6 times 7. 168. What's 100 minus 168? Negative 68. You can see how important it is that we understand the difference between positive and negatives in this scenario. Because if we make a mistake with our positive and negatives, we make a mistake with the type of solutions that we have. So it is a negative number. So how many times does this cross the x-axis? Never. 0 real solutions. 2 imaginary. Yes, you should write the nature of the solutions. You'll be asked to do that on the test. And now we need to simplify. We can't come up with decimals for imaginary numbers, but we can come up with expressions. And so I need to simplify this. And we practiced this the other day. I looked to see what perfect square I could take out of negative 68. And so as I look at my chart on the board, I look at my perfect squares, I take negative 68 and I divide it by 64. Does that work? Nope. Negative 68 divided by negative 49. Nope. You try it all the way down, and do you know which one works? 4. Negative 68 divided by negative 4 is positive 17. So negative 4 and 17 is how I'm going to divide up my square root. And so it will look like this. X equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 times the square root of 17, all divided by 12. We're almost done. What is the square root of negative 4? 2i. Now I look to simplify this. I look at my 3 numbers, and I say, what are they all divisible by? 2. Negative 10 divided by 2. Negative 5 plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1, so just I square root of 17. 12 divided by 2 is 6. That's your answer. See, you should go home and show your parents that you know about imaginary numbers. And you can ask them, Mom, Dad, what's the square root of negative 4? And they'll say 2. And you'll be like, nope. And they'll say, well, negative 2. And you'll say, no, it's 2i. And they'll be like, what? Your mom doesn't even know what square root means. Okay, all right. That's question, Jane. Jane wants to compute these. We cannot. No, it's a good thought, Jane. It would be nice to compute these. Unfortunately, we cannot compute I as a value. So there's no decimal that we can approximate this to. So we're done. And we don't need to, because does this ever cross the x-axis? So we never need to find 2 points where it crosses. We just know that this satisfies the solution, but it's imaginary. Okay? So let's put the technology away, guys. Let's do the last problem, okay? You guys saw Dalton Steele on Tiger Vision, where you ask a girl to prom by texting, didn't you? So did you lose your date from New Prague and now you need to text somebody? All right, you let me know what she says. Okay. Let's try one more. Problem number 15, 4x squared minus 16x minus 16. I have A, B, and C. So I plug it in. X equals negative B, positive 16, plus or minus the square root of B squared. What is B squared? Who's got it? 256 minus 4 times what is A? 4, and C is negative 16. Divided by twice my A value. That's a big number, right? So I need to be able to simplify this. How many negatives do I have underneath the square root sign? 2. So is it going to be minus or plus? It's going to end up being plus. So I have x equals 16 plus or minus the square root of, we have 256, and then minus a negative 256. X is equal to 16 plus or minus square root of 512 divided by 8. What types of solutions do we have? 2 real. Because we have a positive underneath the square root, we know we have 2 real solutions. What is the perfect square I could take out of 512? 256 a perfect square, isn't it? How many times does it go in there? Twice. Not I. We don't have a negative number here. 16 plus or minus the square root of 256 times the square root of 2. What is the square root of 256? What's my last step? Common factor among those 3 numbers. 8. 16 divided by 8 is? That's simplest radical form. 2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 2. I would like to make 2 decimals out of that. So I do 2 plus 2 square roots of 2. and I get 4.83. And then I will do 2 minus 2 square roots of 2, and I get negative 0.83. Simplest radical form and 2 decimals. Both are important. Simplest radical form because that is the exact answer. Decimals are simply an approximation to the nearest hundredth. And that's what allows us to find the spot on the number line when we plot it. This is on YouTube in case you need to rewatch it. I will upload it immediately. Any questions? Going once, twice, thrice.